Hey guys, and welcome to another Evercade deep dive completion review. This is where I need to complete an Evercade game from start to finish. It doesn't matter how many load states and it doesn't matter how many save states, just as long as I can complete the game before I do this review. And what game are we looking at today? Well, today we're looking at Big Karnak, which is on the Galco Arcade number 2 collections, Purple Cart number 6. Let's get into it. Alright folks, grab your sandals and dust off your scrolls, and don't forget your cursed amulet of doom, because today we are going way back in time. And I mean ancient. Like you'll need a torch and a vague understanding of hieroglyphics kind of ancient. That's right, we're diving headfirst into the sand-scorched, sarcophagus-smashing world of one of the weirdest, most why have I never heard of this arcade games ever made. Big Karnak.
You always did have more balls than brains.
Yeah. Goodbye, Benny.
Now picture this. Evil gods are on the loose. A priestess has been kidnapped because, of course she has. And our hero, who looks like Conan the Barbarian after a gap year in Egypt, is the only one who can save the day. And I mean, this guy has muscles, a mullet, and absolutely no regard for historical accuracy. He woke up, chose violence, and then chose fireballs. We're talking javelins, swords, massive magic attacks, and enough mummy punching to make Brendan Fraser proud. You'll fight flying scarabs, giant stone statues, and at one point, I swear, a crocodile with a vendetta. This game isn't just a beat-em-up, it's a full-blown curse-breaking, mythology-shattering nightmare. Is it accurate? Mate, not even close. Ramses would roll in his tomb, but is it fun? We'll get into that as we dive deeper into what is Big Karnak. So before we jump in, do me a favor, smash that like button like it's a skeleton charging out at you from a pyramid. Hit subscribe like you're swinging your sword at an undead pharaoh, and get ready because we are going full pharaoh mode on this pixel-packed, loincloth-wearing, chaos-embracing Egyptian epic. This is Big Karnak, and trust me, it's bigger, badder, and more bonkers than your Year 7 history teacher ever prepared you for. Let's do this. As always, we'll be looking at the story, the sound, and the gameplay, and a little later on, I'll be letting you guys know my Evercade stats on how long it took me to complete Big Karnak. But before we do any of that, let's always look at some interesting facts about the game and its developers. Let's go tomb diving. So before Big Karnak dropped into arcades in 1991 like a flaming scarab from the sky, hardly anyone outside of Spain had heard of Galco. That's right, this was a tiny homegrown Spanish developer just trying to make waves in an ocean dominated by Japanese arcade giants like Capcom, Konami, and Sega. But Galco, they weren't interested in following the crowd. While the rest of the arcade world was obsessed with sci-fi lasers, cyberpunks, and grungy street brawlers, Galco basically stood up in the back of the dev room and said, "You know what this industry needs? It needs a half-naked barbarian running around ancient Egypt throwing spears at a crocodile god and rescuing priestesses from demonic birdmen. Let's do that." And just like that, Big Karnak was born, a glorious, chaotic fever dream of myth, muscle, and mummy-punching madness. The game smashed into Spanish arcade and actually almost caught fire. Figuratively, not literally. And it was one of those Galco's first big wins and helped launch their run of cult classic hits like Thunderhoop, Alligator Hunt, and the legendary racing game World Rally. So while they may not have had Sega's budget or Capcom's name power, Galco did what great underdogs always do. They got weird, they went bold, and they made something unforgettable. And in Big Karnak, they didn't just build a game, they built a whole cursed temple of arcade insanity. Now that's how you put Spain on the retro gaming map. Okay, stop right there. It's time for a bit of a history class, and don't worry, there's not going to be any homework at the end, folks. The name Karnak might sound like something made up or after one too many Red Bulls and mythology binge, but it's actually legit. Karnak is the name of a real-life ancient Egyptian temple complex located in Luxor. We're talking one of the biggest religious structures ever built, used for worshipping gods like Amun-Ra, Mut, and Montu. Now here's where things get hilarious. While the real Karnak was full of sacred rituals, massive stone columns, and spiritual reverence, Gaoko came in and they said, yeah, cool temple and all, but what if instead we put in sword-swimming muscle dudes, dragons made of fire, bird demons, and mummies who explode when punched? Sounds good? Cool. Let's call it Big Karnak. No archaeologists were harmed or consulted in the making of this arcade game, so yes, the name may be ancient, but the gameplay, pure, glorious 90s arcade chaos. It's like they found a history book, read one sentence from it, and then just headbutted it. And honestly, we're so glad they did. Despite how much of a hit Big Karnak was in Spanish arcades back in the early 90s, it never made the leap to home consoles during its original run. Yep, while other games were getting flashy SNES or Mega Drive ports, Big Karnak was left behind like a cursed scroll under a vending machine in the temple gift shop. It was a pure arcade experience found only in the smoky halls of your local Spanish cafe bar, or tucked between a pinball machine and a broken jukebox in a seaside arcade. And then it just vanished like a mummy wrapped in red tape. But fast forward over 30 years and guess what finally rises from the pixelated sands? The Evercade release. That's right, after decades of being trapped in arcade cabinets and emulator purgatory, Big Karnak finally gets an official home release thanks to the preservation legends over at Evercade and the folks who now own Gaoko's catalogue. It's like someone dusted off a forgotten VHS tape in a tomb, popped it into an old CRT TV, and boom, out jumps Big Karnak. This isn't just retro gaming, this is archaeological retro gaming at its finest. Let's take a look at the story. So picture this: ancient Egypt, endless stretches of scorching sand, towering pyramids piercing the sky, and mysterious statues that definitely watch you a little too closely, and probably a few camels who've seen better days and have zero patience for tourists. Life was pretty chill. If your idea of chill is surviving blistering heat and dodging giant scorpions until bam, out of nowhere, a sinister sorcerer shows up. Because of course, there's always a sinister sorcerer, right? And what's ancient Egypt without one? This sorcerer isn't just any bad guy, no. He's the kind who looks like he moonlights as an evil disco dancer with a taste for chaos. He storms through the land, wrecking temples, unleashing curses, and just to up the ante, kidnaps the local priestess. Because, well, villain's got a villain, and nothing says plot like a kidnapped priestess who probably just wanted to finish her morning latte in peace. And to you, the hero of our story, imagine Conan the Barbarian somehow got loose on a Kentucky tour of the Nile, missed the bus and decided, screw it, I'm rescuing a priestess. You're shirtless, naturally, shredded like a walking protein shake commercial, and madder than a cat caught in a rainstorm. Not because someone stole your favourite loincloth, but because you've got one job: smack evil right in the face and bring the priestess home safe. So, how do you do it? Oh, just the usual heroic stuff. You battle flaming skulls that look like they're auditioning for Ghostbusters, punch skeletons into bone dust so fine it could be used as ancient seasoning, and dodge lightning bolts hurled at you by the gods who clearly skipped their morning coffee. Now, the story itself makes about as much sense as a Sphinx doing karaoke. You might find yourself asking, wait, am I a time traveler? A demigod? A gym bro with a grudge against the undead? And honestly, none of that really matters, because Big Karnak isn't here to school you in Egyptian history. It's here to throw down, entertain, and look ridiculously cool doing it. Think of it like a museum exhibit that suddenly bursts to life, kicks down the glass cases, and challenges you to a no-holds-barred sword fight. And in the end, if you manage to survive flaming pillars, crumbling temples, and enough boss battles to fill an ancient scroll thicker than your grandma's cookbook, You might just save the day and the priestess too. But let's be real, you're really here for one thing. Looking like the ultimate arcade hero while smashing undead chariots with your bare hand. History class? Yeah, Big Karnak is definitely not that. But it sure is way more fun. Let's look at the sound. Alright, let's talk about the sound effects of Big Karnak because folks, this game doesn't just hit you with pixelated punches, it smacks you upside the head with some seriously epic audio. First off, the sound effects are as loud and proud as our shirtless heroes' battle cries. Every punch, slash and spear throw funks and smacks with that satisfying weight of a giant fist meeting a mummy's skull, and you can practically feel the bones cracking and the gods groaning from the other side of the arcade. And those enemy death sounds, they're these glorious mix of cartoonish yelps and horrifying screams that somehow make you laugh and cringe at the same time. It's like the monsters are auditioning for a horror comedy, and honestly, I'd buy a ticket for that. Now the music, it's like they trapped an ancient Egyptian festival inside a synthesizer and turned the volume all the way up. The soundtrack pumps out these catchy aggressive beats that perfectly match the game's chaotic action, and it's not your gentle harp playing Nile River Cruise. It's more like Wild Drums of the Apocalypse meets Electric Snake Charmer Party. And the music drives the pace and gets your blood pumping faster than you can say flaming spears. In short, the sound design in Big Karnak just doesn't add to the experience, it is the experience. It's loud, it's ridiculous, it's goofy, and it's absolutely unforgettable. So plug in those headphones, crank up the volume, and get ready to roar along with every punch, every spell, and every monster shriek. Because when you're battling ancient evil in those pixel forms, the soundtrack better be as badass as your badass sword. The music for Big Karnak was composed by Joan Sanamati, and he was part of the talented team at Gauco, the Spanish studio behind the game. Sanamati crafted the catchy, energetic soundtrack that perfectly matched the game's wild, mythological arcade action, mixing driving beats with an ancient Egyptian vibe that makes the whole experience kind of unforgettable. Let's look at the gameplay. When you jump into Big Karnak and you're immediately thrown into this fast-paced, side-scrolling beat-em-up with ancient Egypt meets pure arcade chaos. The gameplay feels classic, but with some twists that keep things fresh and totally unpredictable. Your basic moves, you've got a solid arsenal of punches, sword slashes, spear throws, boomerangs. It's simple enough to pick up but tricky enough to master, especially when the enemies start coming at you from every angle like angry hieroglyphics coming to life. Now the levels, oh man, these aren't your run-of-the-mill pyramid hallways. Each stage is packed with wild environmental hazard, flaming pillars that pop up just when you're catching your breath, collapsing floors that send you tumbling like a sarcophagus on wheels, and traps that would make even the pharaohs sweat. The backdrop shifts from dusty desert ruins to eerie underground temples dripping with ancient secrets. There's always something lurking in the shadows, waiting to ambush you. And then those bosses, if you thought the regular enemies were tough, wait until you meet these guys. You've got a giant skeleton, this towering pile of rattling bones isn't just here to clatter around, it's got fists like wrecking balls and a knack for smashing anything that moves. It's like your worst Halloween nightmare, but with a serious attitude problem. Watch out or you'll be dust before you can say bone crusher. You've got the giant mummy wrapped tighter than your last holiday leftovers. This ancient behemoth lumbers towards you with the patience of a tax auditor, but with the fury of a caffeinated tiger. It's slow, it's deadly, and it's not afraid to use those bandages as whips. You might want to keep some spare toilet paper handy after this fight. You've got that weird spitting plant because what's an Egyptian game without a bizarre angry plant that spits nasty stuff at you? It's like Mother Nature had a bad day and decided to create a botanical boss with zero chill. Dodge its bit and try not to wonder if it's secretly auditioning for the role in Little Shop of Horrors. And then the Kraken itself. Yep, an ancient sea monster shows up to ruin your day, and this multi-tentacled terror doesn't just want a hug. It wants to squash you into a pixelated pancake. Fighting this beast is like wrestling an octopus on steroids, only with way more squelching and tentacle slaps. Each boss fight is a test of pattern recognition, quick reflexes, and occasionally a little luck. Or sheer panic. They're bizarre, larger than life, and just weird enough to make you smile while screaming internally. The game mixes the classic beat-em-up formula with those creative boss battles and dynamic levels, making every moment a frantic, fun challenge. You'll find yourself strategizing whether to stay close and smash buttons or keep your distance and chuck boomerang spears like a pro-Egyptian javelin thrower. And despite its arcade roots, the game feels surprisingly fair. It's tough, but it never feels cheap. Every victory feels earned, especially when you're drenched in pixelated sweat after surviving one of the most insane multi-phase bosses. In short, Big Karnak is like an Egyptian-themed roller coaster that smashes skeletons and gods while you hold on for dear life. It's weird, it's wild, and it's wonderfully memorable. Now, I paid $30.05 for the Galcade Arcade 2 collection, but we can't say that I paid that because this has 6 games on it and we're only really reviewing Big Karnak. So, for today's purpose, we need to say that I spent $5 on this game, meaning for me to get my $10 per hour ratio, I'll need to play and complete this game in longer than 30 minutes. And I can successfully say I achieved this completing the game in 52 minutes, meaning I spent $5.70 per hour, which is a bargain in my books. I had a play count of 1, a load count of 24, and a save count of 9. And now it's time for my review of Big Karnak. Bring out the gods. So for the story, I gave it a 4 out of 10. Now, Big Karnak kind of has a story, maybe if you squint really, really hard and fill in the blanks yourself. So here's what we do know. There's a bad guy who's a sorcerer, obviously, who sweeps in like he owns the desert, causes a ruckus, and kidnaps a priestess. Or was she a queen? Or was she a princess? Or was she your personal trainer from ancient times? Look, it's not really clear and no one sends you a scroll or gives you a tearful cutscene explaining the stakes. You're just thrown in like, here, hero, go stab some evil. But here, where it gets a little strange and weirdly fun. On your way to rescue this mysterious woman, you keep stumbling across other ladies. Let's call them bonus babes of gratitude, who immediately smooch you the moment you set them free. No questions, no names, just a kiss, sparkle, and move on. It's like a heroic Tinder with 0 swipes and all action. And it's hilarious. Are you really just this famous in ancient Egypt? Or is this your normal Tuesday? Are you rescuing the whole cast of an ancient rom-com before getting into the actual plot? It's hard to say, but one thing's for sure, the plot isn't the star of the game. It's like the story showed up late, dropped its notes and yelled, "You get the idea," before sprinting off screen into the distance. And if you're looking for a deep narrative, Big Karnak won't exactly scratch that itch, but if you're down for a wild ride with random romantic rewards and a rescue mission that's more vibe than clarity, then you'll be grinning the whole way through. Look, it's not grade A storytelling, and hell, it's not even The Mummy Returns, but it's got sand, smooches, and skeletons, and what more do you really need? So for the sound, I rate it a 3 out of 10. Let's be brutally honest here, Big Karnak's sound design feels like what happens if a bunch of squeaky rubber chickens stage an uprising inside a tomb. Every enemy you whack lets out a high-pitched screech that's somewhere between a goat with a sinus infection and an old teapot having a meltdown. And it doesn't just happen occasionally, oh no, it's constant, relentless, like the game wants to make sure your eardrums never feel peace again. By the time I got to level 3, I wasn't just fending off ancient undead, I was actively battling the urge to chuck the controller and declare audio bankruptcy. Then there's the music, and I use that word generously. Imagine someone took a dusty ancient Egyptian synth, plugged it into a vending machine, and let a caffeinated toddler smash all the buttons. And that's the vibe. The tracks are high energy, yes, but in the same way that being chased by bees is high energy also. The melodies loop faster than a cursed vinyl on skip, and there's no sense of escalation or relief. Just more buzzing, more bleeps, and more what even is this noise? Instead of giving me that epic "I am the chosen hero on a divine quest to save my loincloth-clad love" feeling, it gave me sonic whiplash. There's no haunting mystery, no tense build-up, no dramatic highs or lows, just an endless parade of slightly off-synth horns and jittery background tracks that blur into one another like a soundtrack from a bootleg cartoon. Even when the levels change from temple, jungle, or the Kraken fight, there's little variation. It all kind of mashes together into one long, droning arcade loop that's more annoying than nostalgic. If this game were a mixtape, it would be labelled "Do not play at parties or anywhere near other people." Look, I appreciate the era that it came from, and I know some players love that crunchy, raw, speaker-blowing 90s arcade sound. And to be fair, there's some charm in how chaotic it is, but for me, the charm wore off faster than a mummy's bandages in a wind tunnel. So for the gameplay, I rate it a 3 out of 10 also. And let's not sugarcoat it, Big Karnak's gameplay is as clunky as a cursed sarcophagus on roller skates. At first glance, it looks like your standard side-scrolling hack-and-jump arcade adventure. You've got your loincloth-wearing hero, your endless stream of weird and bizarre enemies, and your quest to save a kidnapped damsel, or maybe even several, depending on how many lips-to-cheek smooches you can rack up. And for a while, it's fine. It gets the job done like a soggy sandwich. Technically food, but you're not really exactly writing home about it.
I beg your pardon?
What's that mean?
That means I didn't understand what you just said. A wet sandwich?
Yeah, a wet sandwich.
But then for me came a glitch. A game-breaking, joy-sapping bug that I simply cannot ignore. As I'm fighting this final boss, there's a moment where he chucks some nets at you. Seems harmless, right? Wrong. If that net touches you, you just disappear. Not you take damage or you get captured, you literally vanish into the void like Big Karnak's ancient programming couldn't handle the concept of nets. Now, I wasn't sure at first if this was a game-breaking bug or if this was actually part of it, but then when I died and came back still invisible, I thought this must be some kind of glitch, and it happened every single time. Even if the enemy beat me, I would lose my life and come back completely invisible again. If it weren't for the save states and the load states, I'd probably still be trapped in that cursed arena yelling at my TV. I had to redo that section multiple times just to sneak past that glitch and finish the game. It was frustrating, unfair, and felt like the game straight up rage quit me. Outside of the bug, the gameplay is just, well, it's okay. There's nothing here that reinvents the wheel or even oils it. The level designs are pretty simple and the enemy patterns get old pretty fast. The controls definitely on the clunky side, and there's this weird delay in the movement that makes every jump feel like you're guessing whether your legs will cooperate or betray you. Attacking feels a little awkward too, like Karnak is swinging a foam sword underwater. Sure, there's some fun to be had, mainly in its over-the-top bosses and ridiculous retro vibe, but it doesn't take long before repetition sets in. And when you add in the game-breaking bugs to the mix, oof, that really hurts. So, it has clunky controls, average level design, and a bug that had me vanishing like a magician's assistant. Big Karnak might have had the bones of a solid arcade adventure, but it tripped over its own pyramid right before the finish line. A 3 out of 10, and that's with the help of all the save states, because if it wasn't for them, I'd probably even give it a little bit lower. Overall, I give Big Karnak a 3 out of 10. Big Karnak had a spark of potential buried beneath its pixelated sands, but sadly it never quite unearthed that treasure. There was some joy in this side-scroller, mainly thanks to the creatively bizarre enemy bosses like a towering skeleton, a slimy kraken, and a plant that looked like it had beef with a photosynthesis. There's moments that gave me a bit of splash of charm, but it all fell flat, really, and beyond that, there was not much to praise. The controls felt unresponsive and sluggish, like your hero was constantly one step behind your button presses, jumping was a gamble, and attacking felt more like guesswork than skill. Combine that with the level design that, while unique in theme, came off visibly bland and repetitive, and it starts to feel like a grind rather than an adventure. And then there's that game-breaking bug. Imagine this. You make it all the way to the final boss, battle-hardened, ready, focused, and then he tosses a net at you and poof, you vanish. Not you die, not you're trapped. You just cease to exist like you never pressed the start button to begin with. It's less of a final showdown and more, now you Karnak, now you don't. If games are supposed to be an escape, then this one felt like a trap, with the final bug being the ancient curse that sealed it shut. And for this to be the main cover picture on the Gyalko Arcade 2 Evercade card, I was expecting something a little more epic. Like earth-shattering bosses, gods weeping from the heavens, or at least a cutscene with a dramatic voiceover. But nope, the only big things were the curse words I was yelling at my screen every time the janky controls launched me into a pit, or that final boss bug zapped me out of existence like a rejected magic trick. Let's just say the cover promised swords and sandals, and what I got was more swears and sadness. Thank you so much for watching another Deep Dive Evercade completion review. Please remember to give me a like, subscribe, and comment down below, because I would love to hear if, for you, this was a game-breaking bug in Big Karnak, or if it was just part of its old arcade charm. Until next time, stay odd, stay awesome, and we'll catch you on another episode of The Odd Socks. See you guys.